The very first thing I did after becoming the owner of Manchester City was to put the team's star player, Anelka, on the transfer list. Right after that, I even fired head coach Kevin Keegan. Then I made it clear the team would be disbanded on the spot and had to be rebuilt from scratch. Well, that was it. Owners of other Premier League clubs all laughed at me, calling me a reckless spendthrift. Even Manchester City's die-hard fan group, the 1894 group, took to the streets to protest and demand my resignation. But little did they know, I had been reborn with memories of the future. In the new season, I was determined not only to sign Ronaldinho, buy Kaká, snatch Cristiano Ronaldo and poach Messi, but I swore to do it all. You wanted Manchester City to surpass Manchester United, Real Madrid, and Barcelona to become the top football powerhouse. But deep down, you knew City had just been promoted to the Premier League and was only a lower mid-table team fighting relegation. To rise quickly, the only way was to spend heavily. So when the 2003 winter transfer window opened, you made a bold move and prepared £150 million for the transfer market. Your first target was Ronaldinho, who shone at last year's World Cup. Without delay, you took Chairman Bernstein and flew to Paris. You knew City couldn't match Barcelona's appeal. So to sign Ronaldinho, you had to act fast and catch everyone off guard. Using money to overwhelm them was just the right move, especially since Paris Saint-Germain was currently facing financial difficulties. They knew they couldn't keep Ronaldinho, they just wanted to find a good buyer and get a bigger dowry, nothing more. In the office of PSG's sporting director, Le Cornu cleared his throat and smiled, saying, "Ronaldinho is the jewel of our team. He's too important to us. In my mind, he's priceless." But you saw right through his intentions and spoke up directly. "Mr. Le Cornu, if I remember correctly, your club has been having some financial issues lately, hasn't it?" Le Cornu's expression instantly stiffened. He thought to himself, why is this boss from the East not playing by the usual rules? So you said directly, "Mr. Le Cornu, just name your price. We've come here with nothing but sincerity." Le Cornu pretended to ponder for a long time before finally looking up, reluctantly gesturing. £35 million. Hearing this, Bernstein immediately exploded. "Mr. Le Cornu, that's outrageous." But Le Cornu remained firm. "He's only 22 years old. This price is absolutely fair." Bernstein was fuming. This year's Premier League record signing, Ferdinand, was only £32 million. No matter how good Ronaldinho is, he's still just a super rookie. Le Cornu immediately retorted, "But he's a hot favorite for the future Ballon d'Or. This price isn't high at all." The two of them argued endlessly over the price, but you saw right through it. The jersey was Ronaldinho's, and the actual transfer fee was only €25 million, which is just over £17 million. Le Cornu must have heard you had a budget of £150 million, and was trying to rip you off. After more than 10 minutes, they finally managed to bring the price down, below £30 million. Bernstein offered £24 million, but Le Cornu stubbornly insisted on £28 million. Just as the two were at a stalemate, you finally spoke up. £24.8 million, paid in full at once. As soon as Le Cornu heard this, his eyes lit up. The price was already pretty good, and now you were offering to pay it all at once. This was like manna from heaven for their strained finances. He immediately called Chairman Grail to report, and of course Grail had no objections to the deal. With that, the negotiations at the club level were settled. Next, it all depended on the players' own wishes, and that was the real challenge. After all, the allure of Barca was obvious, and your only bargaining chip was money. But right now, our cheerful buck-toothed Ronaldinho was vacationing in Brazil. Le Cornu had no choice but to give him a call and ask if he could come back to discuss the transfer. The phone rang for a long time before someone finally picked up. "This is Roberto Assis, director. May I ask what this is about?" This Roberto Assis was none other than Ronaldinho's older brother and also his agent. Le Cornu quickly spoke up. "Roberto, there's a club interested in buying Ronaldinho. I hope you can come back so we can discuss his transfer." Hearing this, you felt a stir in your heart. So this was the legendary agent brother of Ronaldinho. If he came back to negotiate, then things would be much easier to handle. Sure enough, as soon as Roberto heard there was a transfer opportunity, he immediately flew back to Paris from Brazil. Early the next morning, the travel-worn Roberto arrived in Paris. He didn't even bother to catch his breath and went straight to the club. After exchanging a few polite words with him, you couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Assis, why didn't your brother come back with you?" Roberto waved his hand nonchalantly. "My brother said to leave everything to me. He's still on vacation in Brazil." You couldn't help but roll your eyes inwardly. Ronaldinho really is carefree. "Mr. Assis, we'd like to hear your thoughts." What do you think about joining Manchester City? Roberto looked troubled. Mr. Hua, you know Ronaldinho has big ambitions. His next stop must be a top club. Is Manchester City really that? You almost laughed, thinking, he's putting on an act. If he looks down on us, why come back? He just wants to raise the price and play games. He's still too inexperienced. So you said, it seems you're not interested in Manchester City. In that case, we'll leave. You stood up, and Roberto immediately panicked. He meant to put on airs, but didn't expect you to pull the rug out from under him so fast. If you all left after he came back, wouldn't he be a laughingstock? He quickly tried to stop you. Mr. Hua, what I mean is, Manchester City has shown real sincerity and proven your determination to become a top club, so we're willing to negotiate. You and Bernstein exchanged a knowing smile, mouths lifting slightly. He's not a professional agent. He was handled in a few moves. Then came tense negotiations between Bernstein and Roberto, and both sides agreed. Ronaldinho's weekly salary was £65,000. Don't underestimate that. Right now, the Premier League's highest salary is Roy Keane's £90,000, and Manchester City also paid a €2 million signing bonus. This also means that, in order to sign Ronaldinho, Manchester City paid a total of £26 million, basically a record-breaking fee. But you know in your heart that this deal is an absolute steal. To avoid any last-minute complications, Bernstein signed the contract with Paris Saint-Germain that very day, then had Roberto bring Ronaldinho over from Brazil to Manchester for a medical. As soon as the medical was completed, both parties officially signed a 5-year contract. However, at Roberto's request, a conditional release clause was added to Ronaldinho's contract. From 2005, any Champions League team could buy him for about €80 million. You knew Manchester City's situation, so you didn't oppose this clause. Ronaldinho's peak wouldn't last long, and you always planned to sell at the right time. When both sides signed, you finally breathed a sigh of relief. Right after, Manchester City announced the signing of Paris Saint-Germain star Ronaldinho for £25 million, a piece of news that shocked European football. A reporter asked Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger, "Mr. Wenger, what do you think of this deal?" Wenger frowned. "Ronaldinho is a genius. Manchester City made a shrewd deal." The reporter pressed, "What impact will such a player have on the Premier League?" Wenger shook his head. "Money is powerful. This will have a huge impact, but whether it's good or bad, I can't say." Some reporters also interviewed Sir Alex Ferguson. "What do you think of this deal, sir?" Ferguson smiled. "Maybe this is Manchester City's first step on the right track, but this deal is too expensive. How should I put it? All I can say is, Mr. Huafeng is just too rich." The reporter pressed on. "Mr. Ferguson, how long do you think it will take for Manchester City to challenge Manchester United?" Ferguson gave a mysterious smile. "Is a football round. That settles it on your end." Ronaldinho didn't waste a moment, flying halfway across the globe to land directly at São Paulo FC in Brazil. And your second transfer target is that handsome Brazilian, Ricardo Izexon dos Santos Leite, better known as Kaká. When you arrive, São Paulo club president Juvenal Juvencio is already waiting in the lounge. Juvencio smiles. "Gentlemen, to be honest, you are the 6th club to come asking about Kaká." You and Bernstein exchange a glance, both fully aware of the situation. "Looks like this is another one trying to drive up the price." You speak up. "Mr. Juvencio, why hasn't the deal gone through? Is it because you don't want to sell?" Juvencio looks awkward. "We're asking for a higher price." You chuckle. "Then, Mr. President, what price are you asking for Kaká?" Juvencio thinks. AC Milan offered €8 million, about 5.6 million, but we didn't agree. You laugh. This president is interesting. He wants to raise the price but is too embarrassed to ask for too much. The final price AC Milan paid was just 5.6 million. For a moment, you sigh. People are still too honest. In a decade, those clubs will ask 100 million from anyone. You offer 10 million euros. Juvencio's eyes light up, and he tries to bargain. 12 million euros and it's a deal. You laugh and agree, delighted. Juvencio is stunned, instantly regretting not aiming higher, but he can only accept. Still, he reminds you, "I've agreed, but Kaká's wishes are important. Honestly, getting him to join will take effort." You nodded. So please trouble Mr. Chairman to notify Kaka. An hour later, the back door was pushed open, and an unbelievably handsome young man walked in. The moment you saw Kaka, you couldn't help but marvel in your heart. Damn, he's so handsome. Even I have to admit, I'm not as good looking. Kaka greeted everyone politely, a smile on his face, but his eyes looked a bit confused. He knew about AC Milan, but as for this Manchester City, he had no idea who they were. Just as he was thinking about what excuse to use to turn them down, a voice came from the doorway. "Everyone, may I come in?" Instantly, everyone's attention was drawn over, and they saw a buck-toothed young man walk in, wearing his signature smile. Kaka's eyes lit up instantly, and you smiled. This guy really came at the perfect time. Before coming to Brazil, you had asked Ronaldinho to make a trip to São Paulo, with the sole purpose of having him persuade his younger national teammate. Last year during the World Cup, Kaka and Ronaldinho spent a lot of time together, and given Ronaldinho's personality, the two of them became more than just good friends. As soon as Kaka saw him, he immediately stood up and gave him a big hug. Ronaldinho smiled and patted Kaka. "Hey my little Kaka, come to Manchester City with me. There, you'll have everything you want." Kaka hesitated for a moment, and you quickly seized the opportunity. "Although Manchester City is just an ordinary team right now, I promise that within 3 years, I'll turn it into a top Premier League club." Ronaldinho nodded as well. "Mr. Hua has already told me about his grand ambitions. He can do it, Kaka. Trust Ronaldinho, there's no problem." Hearing this, Kaka fell into thought. You added, "If Manchester City isn't a top Premier League team and Champions League contender in 3 years, I won't stop you from leaving." Kaka looked up, studying your expression. Ronaldinho was direct, telling Kaka about the extra clauses in his contract. Kaka thought, then said, "All right, add similar clauses and I'll transfer to Manchester City." You finally sighed in relief. The rest was left to Bernstein and Kaka's agent Polillo to negotiate. Soon, Bernstein and Polillo reached an agreement. Both parties signed a 5-year contract with a weekly salary of £35,000. Ronaldinho, standing to the side, looked at Kaka and grinned like a flower. With his fellow countryman and little brother by his side, life in Manchester definitely wouldn't be boring. Manchester City officially announced the signing of Brazilian supernova Kaka for €12 million, equivalent to £8.45 million. After securing the Brazilian twin stars, Manchester City had spent less than £35 million of their budget. According to your plan, you intended to spend the remaining £115 million in full. So, without missing a beat, you dragged Bernstein straight to Portugal. This time, your target was that man from Portugal, but the management at Sporting CP was nothing like the honest old man, Juvenício, from São Paulo. They were one of the infamous Big Three black shops in Portugal. With Manchester City's current reputation, if you wanted to buy a player from them, you had to be prepared to bleed money. Even worse, that man's agent was Mendes. Just thinking of that name gave you a headache, but letting him go to that red-nosed old man was something you absolutely couldn't accept. So, bracing yourself, you went to Sporting CP and offered €15 million. Who would have thought they wouldn't even bat an eye? Without hesitation, you immediately raised the offer to €20 million. Bernstein, beside you, frowned. He had always looked down on this flashy kid, and now, seeing you spend so much, he was even more disapproving. Anxiously, he kept signaling with his eyes, but you stayed unmoved. To you, getting Cristiano for €20 million was a bargain. Your boldness stunned the opposing chairman, and you reached an agreement at €23 million, about £16.2 million. The club's side was settled. Next, it was up to Manchester City and the player. While the opposing chairman stepped out to call, Bernstein finally spoke. "Boss, even if we have money, we can't just burn it. I've watched that kid. He's all style, no substance, not worth this price." You just smiled. "In my heart, he's a future Ballon d'Or winner, so no matter how much we spend, it's worth it. Don't worry, we're not short on money." After hearing this, Bernstein opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. Not long after, a sharp and capable-looking man knocked and entered, followed by a slightly awkward young man. You recognized him at a glance. Wasn't this the future 5-time Ballon d'Or winner, the greatest Portuguese player in history, Cristiano Ronaldo? But at this moment, he was far from the superstar he would become. In fact, he still looked a bit rustic. After all, he was just a kid from a small island. Still not quite used to being in the spotlight, Mendes walked over politely and took the initiative to shake hands with you and Bernstein. Hello Mr. Huafeng and Mr. Bernstein. Your heart skipped a beat. This was the first foreigner you'd met who called you by your full name right away. This top agent really lives up to his reputation. It seems he did his homework in advance. Sure enough, as Mendes and Siroy sat down, this future top agent started chatting as if they were already old friends. Mr. Painter, since you took over Manchester City, you've been making some big moves. Are you planning a major overhaul of the team? You don't hide anything from him. The current squad simply doesn't meet my standards, so an overhaul is absolutely necessary. Mendes then asks, then may I ask, what role will my Cristiano have in the team? Without hesitation, you reply, the cornerstone of the team. Hearing this, Cristiano, who was sitting next to you, noticeably shifted. Mendes looked you in the eyes for a moment, then said, thank you for your honesty. But right now, the club's facilities and coaching staff are quite a bit behind those of the top clubs. This could affect Cristiano's development. You reply, I understand your concerns, and that's exactly what I plan to address next. Mendes continues, do you already have someone in mind? You smile. Your old acquaintance Mourinho. What do you think? Mendes is momentarily stunned. After all, quite a few of his clients play under Mourinho. If you could bring him in, that would be ideal. But then you change the subject. I'm just joking. Mourinho is a top-tier winner, but developing young players might not be his strongest suit. I'm planning to bring in a coach who's better at working with young talent. For example, you laugh. Mr. Mendes, this ties into our next grand blueprint. Mendes laughs along. Sorry, I may have asked too many questions. So Mr. Mendes, are you and Cristiano interested in joining my team now? Mendes glances at Cristiano, then says, to be honest sir, joining a top club has always been our dream. So at first, Manchester City wasn't really on our radar. But considering your ambitious plans and Cristiano's future development, we're willing to have a conversation with Manchester City. You can't help but laugh to yourself. Mendes really is a shrewd operator. With just a few words, he gives us a way out while still maintaining a high profile. This way, they definitely have the upper hand in negotiations. But you don't care about any of that. As long as you can get this genius, what's a little extra money? After a fierce verbal exchange between Mendes and Bernstein, both sides finally sign a 5-year contract with a weekly salary of £35,000. There's also a clause. If a Champions League club comes calling after 3 years, he can be released for €80 million. Of course, Manchester City also pays an extra €1 million in commission. Just look at Mendes at work. While fighting for the player's interests, he also makes sure he doesn't lose out. Manchester City spent €24 million on this deal, which is £16.9 million, but this price is already lower than expected. It's a steal. After a thorough medical exam, Ronaldo's physical condition is impeccable, and now it's just a matter of waiting for him to officially join Manchester City this summer. With Ronaldo's signing announced, Manchester City has now brought in 3 young talents in a row, causing a huge stir in the football world. England legend and pundit Gary Lineker analysed on his show that since the new owner took over, Manchester City has been spending on young prospects at inflated prices. It seems they're aiming for a youth revolution, but there's only one Ferguson in Manchester. Can they really succeed? Alan Hansen, beside him, shot a sideways glance. What? Do you want me to repeat that line that came back to bite me? Lineker tried not to laugh. So, do you think they can really achieve anything with a bunch of kids? Hansen glared, but explained. This is different from Ferguson's era. The class of '92 grew up together. Their chemistry can't be matched by just buying players. Lineker raised an eyebrow. So you're saying? Hansen cut him off with a snort, refusing to say more. That moment over 7 years ago, when he said, "You'll win nothing with kids," had taught him to keep quiet. The reporters seized the opportunity and thrust their microphones in front of Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger. Mr. Wenger, what do you think of Manchester City's recent signings? Wenger sighed. What else is there to say? Cristiano Ronaldo is undoubtedly a top talent. We also contacted Sporting CP, but unfortunately, he's already someone else's player now. The reporter pressed further. So you have high hopes for this young player's future? Of course, Manchester City got a real bargain with this deal. After securing Ronaldo, they showed no signs of slowing down. In your Blue Moon Super Club building plan, there's still a key figure who must be secured right now. If we hesitate any longer, we'll completely miss our chance. A week later, you and Bernstein quietly appeared at La Masia in Barcelona.